Hi, I'm Hallie Contois, and I worked with Jack Hurley, Sarah Kfoury, Parker Philbrick, and Steve Rizzo on building a flood-resilient Kittery. So why is this important? Kittery, Maine is a coastal town that is highly vulnerable to sea level rise as a result of anthropogenic climate change. This sea level rise threatens natural and manufactured capital in Kittery. We assessed the value of natural and manufactured capital that is at risk, evaluated the vulnerabilities by comparing to other towns, and gathered recommendations for transportation corridors and working waterfront.
For the background research, we use state websites such as mass.gov to look at communities in Mass, New Hampshire, and Maine. Through this, we researched the propositions and plans each town has in the works using case studies and final reports. We found lots of proposals, but only a few actions taken towards the issue of sea level rise and its consequences. A risk assessment was performed to determine the number of properties at risk in Kittery and the potential property value at stake in 4 different sea level rise scenarios. The first is current high astronomical tide, the second 3.9 feet of sea level rise, the third 6.1 feet of sea level rise, and the fourth 10.9 feet of sea level rise. To perform this analysis, we used ArcMap GIS software, property data provided by the town, and Excel. We conducted interviews, which were more just discussions with town officials, other people in Kittery who are tasked with project planning, and other people in the working waterfront.
So through our desk research, we found that many coastal New England towns have already taken steps towards planning or implementing flood resilience measures. Programs such as the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, which is typed there, but Municipal Vulnerability help towns conduct vulnerability assessments, hold workshops, and apply for action grants. And then shoreline resilience plans, we found include strategies such as living shorelines, public education campaigns, stormwater management, waterproofing existing structures, and more. This table here, created from the GIS and property data, quantifies the flood risk by counting the parcels of land that are affected by each of the 4 flooding scenarios and showing the financial value of those parcels. It's not time to go through the whole chart, but to demonstrate if a 100-year flood was to occur in 2100, which is only 29 years away, about a quarter of Kittery's properties would be impacted to some extent, of which about a third have a building also in contact with that flood zone, which puts $687 million worth of property at risk, accounting for over 30% of the total property value in the town. And then when assessing the risk to these transportation corridors, we found vulnerabilities on Interstate 95, Route 1, Crockett Neck Road out to Garish Island, Route 103, and various roads along Spruce Creek.
So why does this matter? As sea levels rise, there will be more impacts in the working waterfront, including significant economic and infrastructural impacts to businesses and tourism, job insecurity and safety risk for fisher and lobster folk, and natural areas such as Fort Foster will be impacted, resulting in loss of revenue and jobs and loss of natural habitat. We will expect to see impacts in the transportation corridor as well, including damage to and closure of major roadways to key locations, as well as commuting delays, safety issues for emergency services, and emergency evacuations. And this could also result in national security risk if the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard is ever cut off. Damage due to sea level rise can also pose an economic risk due to road closures, loss of property tax revenue, increase in flood insurance, and increase in FEMA funding. Some solutions could include additional FEMA grants, state and federal funding, and tax programs to account for loss of tax revenue. Community outreach is key. Our research will act as a guide for Kittery and residents to better understand the scope of the issue. Our background research helped us understand certain solutions that work well in neighboring towns and states. And after further considerations, we'll identify certain programs and solutions we believe will work well for Kittery.
Moving forward with our project, we plan to gather the common ideas from our discussions with Kittery's town leaders in order to better understand where the town stands in terms of preparedness. Once we have finished organizing our information, we'll be ready to pass on our deliverables to the town of Kittery, which include property damage evaluations, flood maps, Excel sheets with relevant data, and background research. Our hope is that these deliverables will have Kittery on their way to applying for and receiving a grant. Unfortunately, we won't be able to continue working on this project after graduation. We have laid out some important plans for the town to consider. A kinetic model of damage assessment would allow for a more accurate evaluation data. Individual infrastructure assessments are also necessary for at-risk bridges, culverts, and stormwater management structures. And that's all for our presentation. We'd like to say thank you to Professor Woodman, Professor Wake, and everyone involved with putting on the URC.